All right, so a little bit more work today with functions. We're still going to get some practice with just identifying whether or not something's a function, also adding a little bit more to it. We have to be able to identify if a function is linear or nonlinear. We're going to start off with graphs. Graphs will be a little bit easier for this. Anybody got a guess on what it means if it's something's linear? Straight. That works. If you look at the word linear, we got a line. So it's not just going to be any sort of line. It is specifically going to be straight lines. So if we look at this graph here, I have 4 different lines on there. You got red, blue, green, and black. All 4 of those lines are linear. They make straight lines. Okay? So a horizontal line is linear. A vertical line is linear. The diagonal lines, either direction, those are linear if they are straight. Everybody clear on that? This line is nonlinear. It's got a curve. If the line curves, it's nonlinear. All right? Sometimes it's not as easy to tell as looking at this. That's what that means, okay? So nonlinear has some sort of curve to it. Linear means we got a straight line. So like Carlea said, a graph that's linear will form a straight line. So everybody good with that? We'll add the tables and equations a bit later with this, but for today we're just going to focus on the graphs. Should be hopefully a little bit easier. The other thing we got to do or work with are intervals. Okay? So when it asks about the interval of a graph, what it's asking for is like a section of the graph. And it'll say something like from x equals 1 to x equals 5. We're just going to look at that section of the graph from 1 to 5. That makes sense? Or at least a little? You'll see. So if I've got this graph here, if I want to look at it over the interval from x equals -5 to x equals -3, we need to be able to describe it in a couple ways. So if I go from -5, there's going to be that line going there, to -3 is basically that section right there. That's -5 to -3. All right? Everybody good with how I got that section? So we need to be able to describe the graph, the red line. In that section, is the red line linear or nonlinear? Linear. It's going in a straight line. You can look right here, like it's going from here up to here. That's a straight line, isn't it? So that means it's linear. The other thing we have to be able to do is identify if it's increasing or decreasing. When you read, this works like reading, you go from left to right, yeah? So if I start on the left side, if I start here, am I going up or down? Up. So that means it is increasing. Everybody follow? All right, so now let's go from, let's say, x equals -3 to x equals 0. So if I'm going from -3 to 0, that's this section right here. Everybody good with how I'm getting from -3 to 0 and knowing what section that is on the graph? We're just looking at the x values, okay? So when I look at that red line, is that a linear or nonlinear line? Non-linear. It's got a curve to it, right? Increasing or decreasing? Decreasing. No. Increasing. It's going up. We start at the left, and as we move to the right, it's getting higher, so that's going up, okay? Now, if I go from the next section, if I'm going from 0 to 3, that's going from here to there. Is that increasing or decreasing? That's a decrease. Linear or nonlinear? Nonlinear because it's got that curve. What about this one right here? Decreasing and linear. Everybody seeing how it's working? All right. So, got a lot to it, right? But I said we look at the interval. We're looking at it in sections, okay? So, that is from -5 to -4. Is that linear or nonlinear? Nonlinear. It's got a curve to it. You see at the end there, it starts to curve, right? I said sometimes it gets a little trickier. Is that increasing or decreasing? Decreasing. So that's decreasing, nonlinear. Let's go to the next part. From -4 to -3. Is that linear or nonlinear? Nonlinear because it's got a curve. Increasing or decreasing? Increasing. Right here, -3 to -1. Increasing or decreasing? Increasing, linear or nonlinear? Linear. From -1 to +2. Decreasing and linear. We see how this goes? Everybody think we got this? Not so bad, right?